most people's expectations for the Mike Tyson vs Jake Paul fight were not met. And in this video, I want to break down the fight and explain why they weren't met. Let's dive in. Before I get into the main event, I just want to highlight that the two pre-fights, the two fights before the Mike Tyson vs Jake Paul fight were brilliant. The Marius Barrios vs Abel Ramos fight was a back and forth slugfest, a back and forth great competition, and such a close contended fight. It was very entertaining. And then that was followed by the Amanda Serrano vs Katie Taylor fight, which was another spectacular fight. A lot of people saying that Amanda Serrano may have been ripped off. I kind of seen it as going Katie Taylor's way. I thought that she might have done enough just to edge it. I'm not too sure. I wasn't really scoring it. That's just from what I've seen from her in the earlier rounds and just landing those combinations. But I don't know. I haven't done a full breakdown and full analysis of the fight. So it was a very close fight. But either way, regardless of whether people enjoyed the main event or not, or if people were let down from the main event, at the very least, the two fights leading up to the main event were brilliant and were very entertaining. So I was happy just to watch those two fights, even if I didn't see the main event. But I did want to see the main event. Alright, let's start the fight with the initial ring walk. So initially, and in my live stream, as I mentioned, I thought Jake Paul was going to enter the ring last, but he didn't. He entered the ring first, which I'm assuming it's just showing Tyson some sort of respect, which I got to give it to Jake Paul. Kudos to him, showing the old champion fighter some respect by allowing him to walk to the ring last. And I wasn't expecting that. So I guess Jake Paul did prove that he does have respect, and he can show respect, as he did. Now for me, watching the fight, I thought that Tyson had two good rounds, and they were the first two rounds. He seemed to be able to show some glimpse of his former self with some of the combinations he was throwing, how he was trying to get inside, and the head movement. The head movement was impressive for a guy that's 58 years old. Very impressive. I mean, if you look at a 58-year-old and what a 58-year-old actually looks like, and then you look at Tyson and what he looks like and how he's able to move in the ring still at that age, that is very impressive, I think. And for me, the fight was only going to go the way that Jake Paul wanted it to go, or would pivot it to go. And after those first two rounds, you could see that Jake Paul was just trying to steer clear of Mike Tyson, use his footwork, his youth, his footwork to get away from Mike Tyson, which he could do a lot easier than Mike Tyson could get close to him. As soon as Tyson tried to get in close, tried to work his jab, tried to get on the inside, Jake Paul would just backpedal and get out of there straight away, using his better footwork, his better stability to just move. Yes, he threw some punches, yes, he threw some combinations, and yes, he did land some punches onto Tyson. However, he was trying to avoid Tyson mostly. And I feel this is why the fight went the way that it did, and why maybe a lot of people weren't as happy or weren't as entertained with the fight as they would have been if Jake Paul just didn't back off as much. Maybe try and counter, maybe try and trade shots. Yep, I understand it's Mike Tyson, but you want to make it entertaining. The guy is 58. Maybe see if you can take some of his shots and then try and give some back. Get in close and make it a bit of a war. But he didn't want a bar of that. And he made it clear that he was just going to use his footwork to get away from Tyson and not allow Tyson to work off his jab and get in the inside and get to the position that Tyson needs to be able to offload shots and do what Tyson used to always do. And as I mentioned in my live stream, it was always going to be about the punch resistance for Tyson. can he take a shot? If Jake Paul hits him with a good shot or a good combination, is he still going to be standing? And initially, when he got caught with some shots from Jake Paul, and some shots he did get caught with fairly flush, it might not have been the exact or the right location to drop a person, might have been on the nose or glancing blows, but there were some big shots that had landed on Tyson, and seeing some of those shots, I thought, well, maybe Tyson's hurt a little bit because he did seem a bit off balance, but I don't think it was the fact that he couldn't take the shots, that he didn't have punch resistance. It was more the fact that he had an injury and his balance wasn't there. So it seemed when he did get hit with shots that they may have hurt him, but it was more his balance. It was just, I believe, mainly his injury. Yep, it's probably his age as well, and his stability and balance isn't quite there. But from what I've seen, it seemed like Tyson's punch resistance is still fairly decent for a 58-year-old. And then we get into the last 2 or 3 rounds where Jake Paul just takes his foot off the pedal. He's mentioned in some interviews that he was backing off a little bit. He wasn't going as hard. He had respect for Tyson. He didn't want to hurt the guy, but he had thrown some big shots previously. So I'm not too sure if that's just an excuse, if maybe he was gassing out a little bit and didn't want to continue to push on and gas out further, and felt that, hey, you know what, I'm winning this fight. All I have to do is stay on the back foot, use my footwork. I don't have to throw as many punches. What's the point of making myself tired when I'm probably going to win this fight anyway? And in turn, didn't make it entertaining. So whether he says it's a respect thing and he didn't want to hurt Tyson, or it was just a lazy thing and didn't want to continue to tire himself out, to gas out, because maybe he felt at the time, I've already won this. What's the point of exerting more energy and going all out? He could have just given the fans what they want. Stand toe to toe with the legend Mike Tyson. But yes, that is a risky move, and I'm sure most people wouldn't want to do that. All in all, it was an easy win for Jake Paul. Yes, those first 2 rounds, Tyson, I thought, had a bit of success, especially that first round. But the first 2 rounds, that was when he showed a bit. He showed glimpses here and there for the rest of the fight, but Jake just wouldn't let him get close enough. And as much as Tyson tried to work off the jab, tried to use his footwork that wasn't quite there, especially for his age, he just couldn't get in close. He just couldn't do what he needed to do as the smaller fighter, the older fighter, to be able to get close enough and land shots on Jake Paul. Jake Paul wasn't having a bar of it. He wasn't going to let him in close. So that's what made it a boring fight. And you have to give respect to Tyson at his age, still having that. I think I was impressed. Still, like, having that skill level. I think the reason why a lot of people are disappointed and felt it was boring was because it was hyped up that much. People were looking at Tyson, what he used to be, how much of a vicious killer he was in the ring, but don't take into consideration the guy is 58. And to be able to just move and throw punches and take shots the way that he did fighting Jake Paul, that to me is impressive enough. Yes, it wasn't as entertaining as people were expecting. There were no knockouts. It wasn't a war. And as I mentioned, I think a lot of that is because Jake Paul just used the smart tactics of staying away from the older fighter with his youth and footwork, and being able to easily just back away whenever Tyson would try to get in close. So the reason why people were disappointed and maybe thought it was a boring fight, and there were boos at times from the crowd, that's down to Jake Paul just using tactics, and tactics just really to win, not to make it entertaining. I mean, you're making $40 million, at least give the crowd a bit more. Just give us some more. But that's how he chose to fight the fight. And fair enough, maybe he was a bit scared of potentially taking some combinations, and maybe worried about Mike Tyson landing a big punch in the right spot and potentially dropping him or knocking him out. Maybe that was on the back of his mind. But either way, it's on Jake Paul. That's why it was a boring fight. And that's probably mainly why people were disappointed is because he made it a boring fight. Although I believe Jake Paul did make it a boring fight, he did show respect to Tyson right before the end of the fight, and even afterwards, obviously, in the post-fight interview in the ring. There was an interview with Tyson in the ring, and they did ask him who he was going to fight next, and he said, maybe your brother. Logan Paul, I think, is just too involved in WWE and just puts on the typical alpha, I'm a big guy, I'm such a tough guy sort of act. And I don't know if that's because he's been doing too much WWE and it's all talk over there, but what a tosser. And he said something like, I'll kill you.
Well, I don't know. Maybe his brother.
You want to fight Logan? Logan, I think he said you might be next.
I'll kill you, Mike.
No, please, no.
Yeah, what a tosser. So from what Tyson has been saying on social media, or his last post on social media, it seems like he will stop fighting, and that was his last fight, which hopefully it is, because although he's done well to get to the point that he is at, and I felt that for his age he was impressive, it's probably not worth the risk getting in the ring with someone, especially someone a lot younger than you that can do some damage, and maybe someone that will actually want to make it a fight, unlike Jake Paul, and test your chin even more. He probably doesn't want to be in those situations. He's made his money, and I think it would be hard to make an event as big as this, especially after people have seen how Tyson is at the moment, and they realize, hey, well, okay, the guy is 58, so he's not going to be able to fight like he used to 30 years ago. So what's next for Jake Paul? Well, now everyone's calling him out, from Beterbiev to Ryan Garcia. Not Canelo, because Canelo will never fight him. But everyone is calling him out. And the difference is that people call out good fighters after they have a good fight, especially if they're a contender or a champion. But this is not about that. This is not about good fighters calling out a fighter because of their performance and because they've done so well. This is fighters calling out Jake Paul because they see the dollar sign. They see, whoa, Tyson made 20 million, Jake Paul made 40 million. What can I make from him? It's a money grab. That's all it is. They don't care about fighting a fighter to prove to everyone how good they are because they fought this fighter. They want to fight this fighter for a money grab, to make that big payday, because they know that if you fight Jake Paul, you're probably going to make a decent wage. And I don't think Jake Paul will take these fights, and I don't think he should take these fights, especially against champions like Beterbiev, who would destroy him regardless of whether he is heavier than him or not. Jake Paul's not at that class. He's not at that level. Jake Paul, I think, should continue the circus, continue making these fights against these random MMA fighters or whoever he can find to make fights with that are going to be intriguing to people, that people are going to pay just to see what the outcome is. I don't think he will fight a world champion, and I don't think he will scale any of the championship rankings and get to a world title. It's just not what he does. He likes creating these circuses. He likes creating these events. He likes to make all this money. He's not going to go and start at someone in the top 10 to try and slowly work his way up the rankings. And if he jumps up the rankings too quickly, it's just going to end, and it'll end just in one fight. So to me, in my mind, I think he should just continue the circus, continue these events, make as much money as you can until people get bored of you, and then just stop boxing. But I don't mind it either way. I don't care. You're bringing fans over to boxing, and people know what it is. Most people, especially the fight fans, especially people that are into boxing, they know who Jake Paul is and what he represents, and he's not a high class boxer, and to be honest, I don't think he ever will be. But anyway, that's just my thoughts, that's just my opinions. As always, leave your thoughts, leave your opinions below. What do you think? What do you think about the fight? What do you think about Jake Paul? Where should he go next? Let me know. Until next time, Peace out.
Myths in boxing, highlight reels mean. Front row seats to the blow by blow scene.